Hey, thanks for watching Light Hike, and today I'm going to show you one of my favorite lightweight backpacking stoves, the homemade cat food can denatured alcohol stove, right? So, runs on fuel you can get from the hardware store, and including, let's see, yeah, we're coming in at under 7 ounces with pot and windscreen, fuel can, stove, and measuring cup. So here, let me get it set up, and while we're cooking, I'll talk to you about it. All right, so here's the stove itself. Just gonna use half of my windscreen so we can see it. It's the fuel, and I'm gonna measure it out here so that I don't use any extra fuel than I need. I know that in indoor conditions like this, got a window open, I'm only gonna need like 15 milliliters for 1 cup of water. Now the kind of pot you're gonna wanna use with this is a relatively wide pot, flat bottom, because it'll absorb more heat. Um, and if it's blackened from the fire, that's gonna make it work even better as well. So 1 cup of water, and light it. The way you light it is you tip the fuel near one of these holes, and then you can just light it through the hole. And now we're priming it. I think you can see that little blue flame there. So who's this stove for? Well, a 3 or 4 day short hike with food that all you're doing is adding boiling water to, and you're gonna have a campfire. This is the perfect stove. Those conditions, I'd take this stove every single time, because the whole setup you can make for a couple bucks. It's and it only weighs a couple ounces, so that's perfect. So what's going on here, you can see the flames growing. The heat's feeding back from the top of the stove to actually heat the fuel. So once this actually starts going, you see the fuel simmering a little bit, you can put the pot right down onto the stove itself, and it becomes its own pot stand. And I'll put a little windscreen on the back. And put the lid on. So as you can see, that boiling fuel, this won't work if you put the pot on it cold. You got to make sure that it's heated up. But the boiling alcohol actually evaporates out of these holes, and combines with the oxygen right here, and makes your flame. So that's how it works. So I was talking about who this stove is for. Like I said, a relatively short trip because the fuel is a little bit heavier than other fuels, but the stove is so much lighter. So that's where it's going to benefit you the most. If on the other hand you're going on a long trip and you're going to be boiling melting snow for drinking water, this is not the stove. And even more so because doesn't work great in below freezing temperatures, and it's kind of a weak flame, as you can see here. So it's if it's real windy, the heat's going to get all blown away from your pot. So so that's who's going to use it. The way you make it is so simple. You take a cat food can, as you saw, and you punch punch holes in it, and you're done. And then I cut out the bottom of a aluminum baking pan into 2 pieces, and together they make my full windscreen. And you can get this stove. Can you hear that? It's my dog drinking. You can get the fuel at the hardware store for like $6 for a quart. So money wise, this is the best bet you're gonna get. And yeah, sure, you could use anything for the pot. You don't have to use this titanium stove. But like I said, the wider the better, because you can see the flame is kind of curling up around this, and some flames coming up here, which means I am actually wasting some heat. This could be an even wider pot. So this designer stove doesn't work great for like a like a beer can stove or something really tall. Although it'll still work. And we're almost done. Almost got that cup of water boiled. See, it's not so quick, but it's super light and it's super cheap. So, oh, one thing to remember when you're building it is that how low this bottom row of holes is determines this distance, which is the maximum amount of fuel that you can put in here. So on a cold windy day, I can only boil about 2 cups of water in one go on this stove. And let's see, got a nice rolling boil going there. And you can still see that flame going there just around the edges. It's kind of hard to see. Can you see it looking up right there? And that's one other thing I wanted to mention, is that you got to be careful with this stove like in direct sunlight. You can't see that flame at all. So the only way you can know that it's going is just by putting your hand over and feeling the heat from the flame. So it can be a little bit dangerous that way. And see how the stove has now turned itself off? That's because I measured out the alcohol ahead of time. It was the right amount to boil a cup of water, so I'm not wasting fuel. You can snuff it, but it's almost impossible to blow it out. So there it is, the homemade cat food can stove, and thanks again for watching Light Hike.